Hello everyone, welcome to Stathub, a self-study course on statistics organized by Mathematics Association Unify 2023-2025 of Matthew Phillips Training College, Nalanchira. As you have already seen, we have already uploaded 2 videos regarding measures of central tendency, one regarding mean and the other regarding median. Now I am going to take the third topic, mode. In a nutshell, let me explain the major points that I am going to explain today. I am going to deal with the basic definition of mode, followed by the 2 types of data, grouped, ungrouped data, how mode applies to these kinds of data. Then an example to demonstrate the group data and ungrouped data. As a coin has 2 sides, this method or this measure of central tendency also has its merits and demerits. So I'll be taking the definition followed by the 2 types of data for group data and ungrouped data, followed by its examples, and then finally its merits and demerits. Let me move on to my topic. So what is mode? Mode is nothing but the value of the item which occurs more frequently than all other items. Which means, consider an example, a list of numbers. 3 times 5 occurring, 2 times 2 occurring, and 1 time 1 occurring. That means 5, 5, 5, 2, 2, and 1. So here 5 occurs the most number of times. That is 5 occurs 3 times when compared to 2 and 1. So here the modal number is 5. So basic definition of mode says it is a value of the item which occurs more frequently than all other items. I hope it will be clear to you. Next, we are going to deal with different kinds of data, how mode can be incorporated into different kinds of data. Mainly, we deal with group data and ungrouped data. So what is an ungrouped data? What is a group data? And how can we apply mode to these kinds of data? So now, ungrouped data means it's a collection of individual data points. For example, consider the example that I mentioned before. 5 occurring 3 times, 2 occurring 2 times, 1 occurring 1 time. So if you represent it in a tabular form as numbers and frequency. Frequency is nothing but the number of times it occurs. So numbers include 5, 3, 5, 2 and 1. And corresponding frequencies include 3, 2 and 1. So here it consists of only a single or individual data point. So this is an example for an ungrouped data. It is not grouped. It is ungrouped. So for an ungrouped data, how do we find mode? It is nothing but the value which repeats the most. So in the example I mentioned before, the frequency of 5 was 3, so which was maximum. So in that example, 5 was the number or 5 is the modal number. Now, another problem. Here, we have the number of items found by 11 children in a scavenger hunt. What was the modal number of items found? And those numbers are 14, 6, 11, 8, 7, 20, 11, 3, 7, 5 and 7. So, how do we solve the above problem? The method to solve the above problem is, first read the numbers that is given. Arrange them in descending or ascending order according to your convenience. If there are so many numbers, then you need to put the scores in order and then create a frequency table. Since there are only few numbers in this question, it will be enough to make a simple list of scores. So here we have 14, 6, 11, 8, 7, 20, 11, 3, 7, 5 and 7. So we represent it in a tabular form as scores and frequency representing the 2 columns. And we write it in descending order. You can also write it in ascending order. Now I am choosing it in descending order and arranging the scores. 20, 14, 11, 8, 7, 6, 5 and 3. And the next column being the frequency. So 20 occurring only one time, but 14 occurring only one time, 11 occurring 2 times, 8 occurring 1 time, 7 occurring 3 times, 6 occurring 1 time, 5 occurring 1 time, 3 occurring 1 time. So the highest frequency is 3, which is corresponding to the score 7. So here the modal number is 7 because it repeats the maximum number of times. So the answer is 7. Now it's your turn to check how much you understood about the previous topic, that is how to calculate mode of an ungrouped data. Here is a follow-up activity. Find the answer and comment below. The problem is the exchange rate for sterling against the US dollar for 15 days in January 2003 is given in the following table. Calculate the mode of this data, and following numbers are given. Kindly comment the answer below. Next, moving on to group data. So what do you mean by group data? Under group data, the whole results or outcome are represented as class intervals. So what do you mean by class interval? For example, if you have so many numbers ranging from 5 to 10 and 10 to 20, like so on, you can represent the whole numbers from 5 to 10 as a class from 5 to 10 of class with 10 minus 5, 5. And next 10 to 15 with uniform class with 5. Next 15 to 20 and so on. So 5 to 10 is a class interval or the class that is created. So here the entire data is represented as class intervals. Unlike ungrouped data, which is represented using individual data points, group data we use class intervals for representation. This requires less time when compared to ungrouped data and more efficient way. So here, how do we calculate mode? We have a formula to calculate mode in the case of group data. Since it involves a frequency table, a class interval, the entire formula is linked with that table that is created. The formula is mode equals L plus Fm minus F1 by 2Fm minus F1 minus F2 multiplied by the whole multiplied by I, where L stands for the lower limit of the modal class, the class having maximum frequency. F1 represents the frequency of the class just below the model class. F2 represents the frequency of the class just above the model class. I represents the size of the class interval. Fm represents the frequency of the model class. The terms could be best explained with the help of an example. As I mentioned before, the formula of mode can be best explained with this problem. Find the mode of the following data. Age and number of patients are given. Age 5 to 15, corresponding number of patients 6, 15 to 25, corresponding 11, 25 to 35, corresponding number of patients 21, 35 to 45, corresponding number of patients 23, 45 to 55, number of patients 40, 55 to 65, number of patients 5. So the formula for mode in the case of group data is L plus Fm minus F1 by 2Fm minus F1 minus F2 into I. So the procedure goes like this. First, we need to find out the modal class because the entire formula is dependent on that modal class. So the class having maximum frequency is known as the modal class. So in the question below, we have 23 as the maximum number of patients, which corresponds to our frequency. So the corresponding class or age in years is our modal class. 35 to 45 becomes our modal class in this question. So we have done our first job, that is finding the modal class. So the formula is L plus Fm minus F1 by 2Fm minus F1 minus F2 into I, where L corresponds to the lower limits of the model class. So here we have found out that 35 to 45 is our class interval, and 35 is the lower limit of the class and 45 is the upper limit. So the capital F corresponds to 35. Next thing that we can directly find is Fm, which is the frequency of the model class. That is the maximum number of patients here. So that is 23. So Fm becomes 23 in this case. Next we need to find out F1 and F2. So F1 is that frequency which is just below the model class, and F2 is that frequency which is just above the model class. So here our model class is 35 to 45. So the frequency just above the model class is 21 and the frequency just below the model class is 14. So F1 becomes 21, F2 becomes 14. And I is the size of the class interval, which could be found out by taking the difference of the upper limit and lower limit. So class interval width or class width equals the upper limit subtracted upper limit minus lower limit. So here we have 45 minus 35, 10, or 15 minus 5, 10. Here we have uniform class width. So I becomes 10. So we found out the necessary things for our formula. So we are substituting it in our formula. So mode equals the lower limit of the model class 35 plus the frequency of the model class Fm, that is 23, minus frequency just above the model class, that is 21, by 2 into 23 minus 21 minus 14 into class interval, which is 10. And on solving, we'll get the answer as 36.8. Now moving on to merits of mode. It can be easily calculated and easily understood even by a layman. That is evident from the questions that you have seen. Now, it is widely used in production and trade. It can be determined even with the help of a graph. So it is not affected by extreme values unlike other measures of central tendency. All items are not needed in estimating mode. We have seen that the only thing that we need for group data, we need the model class, the frequency corresponding to it, and the frequency just above it and below it. So we don't need the entire data. The next one, it coincides with one of the values of the series. We have seen from the above examples. So these are major merits of mode. Now, like I mentioned before, a coin has two sides. So if there are merits, there are demerits too. Moving on to demerits of this method. Main demerit could be the mathematical manipulation is not possible. We need to remember or by heart the formula that is related to group data. If we forget the formula, then we cannot apply that mode concept there. So it becomes difficult. So different formula give different results. That's also a difficulty that is found. An unsatisfactory average is given by this method. Also, it is indefinite and uncertain. It is unsuitable as it fluctuates from sample to sample. Also, it is not a true representative in certain cases. There are cases where this method goes wrong, where mode cannot be applied. So these are major demerits for mode. So today's session, we have discussed about the third measure of central tendency, mode. So we have seen the basic definition of mode. It's nothing but the most frequently occurring data in the case of ungrouped one, and for grouped data we have a formula regarding the model class, and we have discussed the merits and demerits of mode. So that's all for today's class. Thank you. Do hit the bell icon for more interesting videos. Like and subscribe, share maximum. Thank you. So today's session, we have discussed about the third measure of central tendency, mode. So we have seen the basic definition of mode. It's nothing but the most frequently occurring data in the case of ungrouped one, and for grouped data we have a formula regarding the model class, and we have discussed the merits and demerits of mode. So that's all for today's class. Thank you. Do hit the bell icon for more interesting videos. Like and subscribe, share maximum. Thank you.